Hello everyone, this is Kevin, your entrepreneur, and yes, it's another podcast style video. I'm sorry, but for reasons that I cannot get into right now, I just can't be filming anything at the moment. But I can record, and this is something I definitely need to discuss. But Uber is now banned in all of Italy. And interestingly enough, it's not a case where Uber has left because they didn't get their way. It's not a case where Uber was forced out because they didn't want to do fingerprints or they were forced to join a union. They were banned because they were sued by the taxi industry. And here's the thing, as much as I don't like Uber, and I give them a lot of crap on this channel. I give them so much crap. I mean, some people say, oh, you defend Uber all the time. No, I don't. I'm actually crapping on them just as much as the next guy, maybe more because I actually drive from them, and guess what? They don't really treat people who drive for them very well, so I have more of an incentive to just go, Uber, you suck. You suck. But in this case, I'm gonna have to defend Uber because Uber didn't do anything wrong. In fact, there is a huge irony in this, and we're going to discuss it. But yeah, Uber is banned in Italy. The courts banned them because the taxi industry sued them for, not Italy, Uber. The taxi industry sued Uber over there for unfair competition, and a judge actually agreed. I don't know the exact details of the ruling, but the judge went over and was kind of like, yeah, so, Uber creates an unfair competition, so we're going to block you guys. Now, of course, without having read why the judge felt this was the case, I'm going to assume it's because Uber is like a fraction of the cost of the taxi industries, and the taxi industry says that they can't compete with that. And you know what? I kind of believe them. I really do, because here's the thing. If Uber had their own cars to maintain, then guess what? They wouldn't be charging 90 cents a mile. The only reason they're doing that now is because those cars aren't theirs. They're our cars, and Uber doesn't have to pay for our cars. Heck, they won't even replace a $700 phone when a passenger of theirs breaks it, and it's very clearly obvious that the only reason the passenger was there was because they were an Uber passenger. So yeah, Uber's pretty darn cheap. But here's the thing, and I don't know if the judge realized this or not, but by blocking Uber for unfair competition, well, they have in effect created unfair competition. Because here's my opinion of the taxi service. And I know I have taxi drivers watching this channel. Some of them hate me, some of them like me, some just think it's kind of interesting to hear my life stories and stuff like that. But the taxi industry sucks, not because it's expensive. I do believe it doesn't help, but I believe the taxi industry sucks because the customer service is terrible, their drivers are rude, they fight people on using credit cards, their cars are not clean, their cars make funny noises, and yeah, I believe those are the overall things that cause the taxi industry to suffer, because Uber was taking off before they dropped their prices to the bare minimum that they are now. People were taking Uber when it was minimum $10 a ride. But now we have to ask, why did the taxi industry get that way? Well, the taxi industry got that way because they created a monopoly, and the taxi industry has had a monopoly on the car transportation service in terms of people just needing to hail a ride for years. So there was no reason to improve the customer service or the standards of the cleanliness of the car or anything, because what choice did you have? Uber came along and created competition. Now, in most situations when competition is created, the other company will kind of go like, okay, well, they have this product and it's better. How can we make our product better so that people will want to use our service? That's what they would normally do. However, companies that don't do that are companies who have not had to compete for a long time, and that is the taxi industry. The taxi industry has had no competition for years. And by the way, on a side note, this is why I am not in favor for Uber killing the taxi industry. This is not why I am not in favor of Uber or even Lyft or anyone being the one dominant company. I believe competition is good. Competition is good for everyone, except maybe the worker bees, but that's a conversation for a whole nother video altogether. And when Uber came into Italy, they provided competition. Now, are Uber rates way too low? Yes, but you know what? There is no law saying that a company has to charge rates so that you lose money, which is basically what Uber does. Uber's rates are so low that nobody makes money, and no one's forcing them to do that. Now, they are doing that because they want people to use their service instead of the taxi's service, and what they're hoping is they will take enough business away from the taxi industry because they feel that they can't afford to lose money as much, and that hopefully they will go out of business. And once the taxi industry goes out of business, guess what? Uber's the only one there. They will raise their prices. It's gonna happen, folks. This is why you don't want them to go out of business. I mean, this is why Amazon scares me so much. Whenever Amazon gets into any industry, with the exception of like the movie industry, I always fear a little bit because it's very difficult to compete with a company that doesn't need to turn a profit. It's very difficult. So on that level, maybe the judge has a point. But by banning Uber, they have since banned competition. Now, some people might be asking, well, but they didn't really. You can go and you can create a separate taxi company if you're in Italy. Guys, taxi industries work the same in most of the world. Yes, you can create a company, but you have to meet these certain requirements. You have to join these certain guilds. If you hire drivers, they are going to be connected to taxi driver unions, and the taxi driver unions are going to dictate what you can pay them, and you don't have a choice. So basically, everyone's getting paid the same everywhere, so everyone has to charge the same. The taxi industry, because of the rules and regulations, have created a monopoly. I do not want that monopoly on Uber's end either, but what the Italian courts have just did was they have basically said, we prefer this monopoly over that one. It's not cool. Competition is what breeds innovation. It's what breeds good rates and prices for the customers. It's also what's good for the laborers, because if the laborers don't like what they're getting paid, they can move to the competition. That's why until this weekend, I was getting competing emails from Uber and Lyft about the bonuses they were giving, because they would rather me drive for them and pick up their customers than have me drive for the other person and pick up their customers. This is what competition does. And what Italy has done is super sketchy, and it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. I mean, here's another story. Long Beach Airport in California just recently announced a 6-month pilot program where Uber and Lyft drivers can drop passengers off and pick them up. Now, why only 6 months? Because when it came time for the next round of contracts, the taxi industry didn't pay Long Beach Airport to be exclusive. The reason we haven't been able to go to Long Beach is because the taxi industry paid the airport enough money to keep us out. Now, when the taxi industry said no this time around, for 6 months, they're going to show that they're serious about letting Uber and Lyft onto the airport, and they're going to see if the taxis want to come back and play hardball and, of course, pay for the rights to be exclusive again. By the way, that's kind of a monopoly in and of itself. On the other hand, not really, because Long Beach Airport is totally free to go with an exclusive contract, and as you can see, when the company doesn't want to pay what they want, they can do something else. I don't want any of these industries to go out of business. I actually think the taxi industry could compete with Uber better. I know they can't always match their prices because, again, Uber is losing $4 billion a year and they're pricing it that way. If they want to price themselves out of business, that's fine. That's totally their prerogative. But the taxi industry can't have nicer cars. They can have nicer drivers. They can create an app service where, hey, guess what? It's a taxi network. You can summon a taxi with the push of a button, and taxi companies can pay fees to be part of that network. You can do the same thing, taxi industries. And while you might be more expensive, guess what? If you're just as convenient as an Uber, people will use you, especially during surge pricing. During surge pricing, sometimes the taxi is cheaper than an Uber. It really is. So, actually it's interesting because you pick up people downtown all the time at 2 a.m. and they drive like 40 miles and it's like on a 2-3 times surge, and they say it's cheaper than a taxi, but I don't have the heart to tell them, but no, it actually isn't. You're actually paying me like probably $70 more than you would a taxi. So this is, you know what? The option is there. If they choose not to take it, that's their choice. but it's good to have that option. So this thing with Italy is, I don't know. That's obviously Uber's going to appeal the ruling, and this time they should, because there's no reason for this. There is no reason the Italian judge should have done this, period. I mean, the thing is that I want to point out, Uber can set their prices, and no one's saying they can't. I think you start having a very slippery slope, because if you can tell people that they're charging too low prices, you can tell them they're charging too high a prices. For example, when have you ever wondered, I don't know if anyone ever remembers these video catalogs, but I used to read a video catalog that would basically be advertisements for like the video stores about movies that were coming out, and they would have the suggested retail price. And the suggested retail price was made because this was how you could make good money on the movies. They would sell you this DVD for like $19, and the suggested retail price would be $29.99, and you could get a fair profit. Well, a lot of these stores, they charge $20 for the DVD, and they profit $1. Now, it's still a profit, but it's not a very big profit. But hey, you know what? There's some wiggle room. If they want to charge that and have this be a loss leader for other things, that's totally their prerogative. What happens if you have like a mom and pop store that buys those DVDs, and it's like, well, we don't make Walmart or Target money, we have to sell it for $29.99. Can they now be sued for charging too much because they're not charging what an average store who can afford to sell it for $20 is charging? I don't know. It's a very dangerous and slippery slope, but I think it's wrong. Well, anyway, this video is long enough as it is. I did not expect to talk as long about this as I did. I probably should have expected to. I'll try to edit it down a little, but we're probably looking at a 13-minute video or something like that. But anyway, what do you folks think? Do you think this is good of Italy to do? Do you think it's right? Do you think it's wrong? I'd like to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.